Okay, here we go. Hit it.
It's May 8, 2020, episode 79. I'm Patrick Ceresna.
And I'm Kevin Muir. This week we have the rare privilege of having the author of Occupy a Job on Wall Street, along with one of the heroes from his stories, Tarzan, join us to tell us the tales about the hedge fund industry in the 2000s. Then we have Chase Taylor from Pinecone Macro to join us to do the talking charts.
And this week in trading history, we go back to the panic of 1866, and then we get to the WTF Clip of the week, and we finish with the top 3 things to watch next week.
A couple of years ago, a reader brought to my attention a great new writer that was telling stories about the heydays of the hedge fund industry. The stories went under the name Occupy a Job on Wall Street, and to say I was instantly hooked was an understatement. With catchy chapter titles like GQ's Wingman of the Year and Gasoline Stripper, the novel tells the story of a young hedge fund trader in the aughts who, as he states at the beginning of every episode, has been mentored by sociopaths. I marveled at the writing, with lines like, they had a reputation as a team who could get a table at the Last Supper, when he was describing a well-connected salesman. Or getting up the stairs to the front door is like trying to climb Mount Everest in flip-flops when telling the story of a particularly drunk trader. Occupy a Job on Wall Street became required reading in my household and never fails to bring a big, huge grin to my face. Although the author has to remain anonymous for reasons that are too plainly obvious when you read his stories, he has agreed to join us today. We will call him Dundee. Not only do we get the pleasure of Dundee's company, but he has brought along one of his heroes of his stories, none other than the famous Tarzan. So, gentlemen, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks very much for having us. And just to start off, I should point out that I only have 3 paid subscriptions outside of, Bloomberg and the rest, which is the Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal. And Kevin's email is our third. And secondly, I'd like to flag that you were definitely the first person to highlight the coronavirus threat to the markets. I believe Sunday, what was that, February 26th or something along those lines?
Oh, I think it was actually in January.
It was January 26th.
Yeah, it was January.
4 months have been like 4 years, so it's hard for me to keep track of everything. So.
Well, Dundee, that's very kind of you to remember that. But as I like to say, even the blind squirrel finds an acorn every now and then. So let's talk about you. Like, you're a hedge fund trader and you got into writing. Like, how did that come about?
There's an aspect to New York City that I feel has changed, and obviously the business has changed a lot. And we kind of wanted to put that in a bottle. And the acceptable 10 years ago is the unacceptable now in many, many ways. And I think that when you, as I like to say, when you say New York City's changed, what you're really saying is you've got older. And I think people look back on that time with a certain amount of nostalgia. And I don't think it's ever coming back. So I think there's an opportunity to write about that time, and I've been planning to do it for some time, and then I just pulled the trigger. So that's kind of how it started. So then we shared these podcasts around amongst our friends, and then people would come back to us with more stories, and then we would write those up, and the plan was to do 10 of them, and now we're on episode 78. So.
Wow, so that's unbelievable. So
we stumbled into it, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's terrific. It's just so entertaining. There's so many stories that I want to get into because there's so many things I want to know. But Tarzan, let's bring you into this. I reread the stories that you were involved, and I have to kind of ask, are they all true?
Let me tell you guys something here. First of all, I want to thank Patrick, Kevin. I want to thank you both. I feel like I'm on the couch with Johnny Carson or David Letterman right now. I want to thank you both for having us on here, first of all. And second of all, I want to tell you, I'm a lighthearted fellow. And all these stories, not only are they true, but it's only about 5 to 10% of what really went on. And I have to tell you, I'm a very positive person. I will say that Dundee over here, when he gets the stories or, he gets a hold of them, it's kind of like Lord of the Rings. It's like, I'm creating a wonderful, good-natured stories here, and he kind of puts a little twist on him. Like a high elf, he turns him into an orc. All right, just a little bit there. He puts a little bit of a slant on all these stories to make everybody sound more of a jerk than they are. But that's my impression. But are they true? Absolutely. They might even be worse than what we have on there.
Okay, so let's talk.
Yeah, I don't think we're even scratching the surface. One of the advantages we have is the people, of course, will tell us. No one's going to tell a journalist this or a real writer or an author any of these stories. So there is a qualification. The qualification is that the characters, with some exceptions, are all composite characters. So if there's a fight in a bar somewhere, then it was really 3 fights that happened over 3 years, and we brought them together. So
right.
I'll tell you something else. The one of the interesting parts of our podcast is that we can the subject matter is infinite, because we can everybody has a story. Like you guys, I'm sure both have many stories, or somebody who has stories, and these things that really went on and that just have never been told because they're you kind of want to keep them to yourself, don't you? Or you forget about them, right?
Right. Okay, so let's tell one of those stories. Tarzan or Dundee. Who wants to tell the story about when Tarzan went to the football game and rode a cooler bike? Which, by the way, I had no idea. I'm a Canadian. I had no idea what a cooler bike was. I had to look it up.
Yes, I remember this.
Why don't you tell us the story of the cooler bike and what happened?
So this is back in the days of where just everything was a bit of a haze. But when you asked if they're true or not, I actually have some pictures still of this one. So what happened was, we're in I was with a couple sales traders and had a huge tailgate at a Giants game. So we were over there having a great time, and it was this cooler scooter, which I've never heard of before, but it's this little scooter with a cooler as the seat, and it's chock full of beer. And so I was just like, so some guy had this at the tailgate of maybe 50 to 100 plus people at this thing, and I was like, oh, I gotta try this out for a spin. So the guy was gracious and let me try it out, and I'd had a few by this point. I think I was drinking. It was back in the days of Four Loko. Do you guys remember these things?
No.
No. Okay. So they were actually it was like an energy drink with alcohol in it, and they were banned because some college kid drank 2 of them once and died.
God.
All right. So they were banned for a while, but once me and a friend heard that, we were like, oh, let's go get some. So we had so we each got 2, and my friend didn't. They were actually kind of nasty, but my friend didn't drink one of his, so I had 3 before we even showed up. So anyway, so I took this cooler scooter for a ride. Now, granted, I'm 6'5", and this thing is low to the ground. It's a tiny thing. I'm like one of those bears on a tricycle at the circus. Okay. So I hit I twisted the the handlebar, and I was kind of going. We're in a tailgate. It was a little tight circle. So I go around in a circle, and I hit the accelerator. This thing had speed that I wasn't ready for. I wiped out. Okay, I wiped out, going around in a little circle, beer, ice spilled out everywhere. Everybody's pointing and laughing at me, right? And I felt like the biggest loser ever, right? Everybody at this tailgate, Tarzan. So I just kind of got up and I cruised out of there on this cooler scooter, right? So I drove out of there like a total loser. I was feeling terrible. My emotions were down. I was very low. Right, so I'm driving around the parking lot at MetLife/Giants Stadium, and I happened to run into this band of high school cheerleaders in uniform. And
nothing good ever comes of a comment like, "I happened to run into a band of high school cheerleaders in uniform." Tarzan.
Well, I guess they were there and they were doing cheers for money to raise money for their program or whatever. I was like, okay. So I just reached out, gave them big. I said, hey, would you guys come and do a cheer for my tailgate? They're like, oh yeah, great. So I rode out of there like a loser. And then as I was going back there, I came back on this cooler scooter, right? Like my knees are up against my ears, kind of like riding on this thing. I come back at 2 miles an hour, real slow, flanked by an army of high school cheerleaders. Show up, they do a big cheer for us. So I went out like a zero, came back like a hero. That was a good day.
Oh gosh. So
I mean, one of the funny things about all this kind of stuff is that both Tarzan and I were clients at the stage. So a lot of the time you have your salesperson in there and they're trying to show you a good time. They're trying to keep control of things. And we would spin things wildly out of control. Like there was no way to manage these events, So we were blowing things up left and right, which was really fun,
So Dundee, I've had so many people when I've kind of put them on to your podcast or reading it, everyone always asks me, who do you think the Pelican is?
All right, so it's a 10-minute story, and I'll do it in a minute and a half.
Okay.
So when I first got into the business, the Nasdaq was crashing, and we were in a recession, and there was wars going on, terrorism, et cetera, and I'm from a small town out west, and New York was an intimidating place, but I found out that sales traders would take me out, and I could spend an unlimited amount of money on alcohol. And to me, this was just the most staggering thing that I could ever come across. And I had no interest in food at all. All I wanted to do was drink. So I went out with this OpCo sales trader, and we went to I think it was the Four Seasons, and we're sitting at the bottom of the Four Seasons, and we're just pounding beers. She was a big drinker as well. And this woman, Mary from television, comes out, and she's above the stairs, and she's with all her friends. And one of her friends falls down the stairs and has a full-on coke fit. Ambulance come, you can see coke spitting out of her nose. Total panic. And I go back to the trading desk, and the trading desk is a hard-bidden place there, and you step out of line, you get shot down really fast. And I said, to the head trader, I said, look, your friend Mary, we saw her and her friends, and they had this, her friend had this huge coke fit. And he's like, Dundee, you're full of shit. We spoke at 10 o'clock, and she never mentioned it to me, and we're good friends, and she would have mentioned it to me if that was the case. And I feel 2 foot tall, and I go back to the desk, and Mary comes on television, and she looks like she's been hit by a freight train. I mean, her scar is running down, her hair's all stuck up at the back, and no amount of makeup can make it look like there's any kind of normal morning. And the head trader sees her and goes, you know what, you're not full of shit. That did happen. And he calls up an unnamed analyst. Well, I can say the analyst's name. I believe it was Art Hogan at Jefferies. And says, look, you're going to be interviewed at 10 o'clock, and you're going to say the word Pelican 3 times. And Art goes, I'm not going to do that. And he goes, you are going to do that. And he goes, if you don't do it, we're going to cut you off. And if you do it, a river of commissions is coming your way. And so Art has to say this. So, it's 10 o'clock, and he's being interviewed, and the markets are a disaster. And Mary says to Art, he goes, well, what do you think of the market? And Art goes, well, we think the Nasdaq's forming a pelican formation. She goes, what do you think? A pelican formation. So he said it, right? And this is back in the day when, everyone watched CNBC. There was no electronic trading. The NYSE floors absolutely silent waiting for this because everyone would be calling it. And the reason they called Mary the Pelican is because she could take a... Oh, no! a bit jarring,
Yeah. So let's talk about the business. How has the business changed? You guys have both been in it for a long time. When you started, you were young bucks and on Wall Street having a lot of fun, and you kind of already alluded to it, Dundee, that it's not as much fun anymore. Is that a function of kind of the marketplace, or is that the world is just kind of growing up?
Oh, definitely both.
Yeah.
I think we're actually lucky that it lasted as long as it did, but it's long gone now, from what I understand.
Yeah,
So,
look, it's never coming back, and it probably shouldn't ever come back. Most of what was going on was absolutely totally unacceptable all the time. But it was
looking back, that's the case. But I'll tell you the reasons for that, which I don't want to get into because it's sad. I think the reasons for that are shrinking commissions. Commissions are always on the route to zero, and the other reason is automation.
Right. So now there's not as many traders like in the old days. So, you would actually talk to somebody, whereas nowadays a hedge fund will be going and just putting in a VWAP or whatever, right?
You guys, back in the day, I remember a time, my phone, one day my phone was ringing. I was busy with something else. I picked it up. The guy says, I'll sell you 250 IBM, whatever this time, I'll sell you 250 IBM at 70 cents. I said, done, click. And I was pissed. And then I realized a little while later, I don't even know who was on the other end of the phone. Now, luckily, I figured I'd just keep my mouth shut. Luckily, it did. It was a winner, and the next day it came in, and that's how I found out who it was.
Well, you know what? So, Tarzan, I actually worked on an institutional desk in Canada, and I remember guys phoning up, and they'd be like, "It's Bob from Oklahoma Teachers." And he would buy, like $1 million of some ETF. And I would say, okay, done, sold. Now, but we'll figure out, get the account open. And people tell me now, to open an account takes years.
Oh my gosh. Can I just tell you something that's like that? I mean, the compliance, we used to call them the business prevention unit. It is the most ridiculous thing ever. I actually have a great buddy who's a friend of mine today. We did a trade, and his company actually canceled it and took it back. It was like the first inaugural trade. They canceled it and they took it back because of some like little paperwork,
snafu.
Minuscule detail.
Yeah.
But, so that that whole thing is just terrible. I'll tell you one story kind of related to this is that back in the day when things were still good, we had an account open at a place known for doing big blocks of stock and lesser liquid names. And we used to deal with the owner of the company. And after a while, I guess he moved on to bigger and better things or something. But I noticed that I was actually kind of bored. And I noticed that we had the account open and that we weren't doing anything. So I cold called them. And I just cold called him. I said, yeah, can I talk to the trading desk? He goes, okay. So he puts it through. And I said, hey, let me talk to the best trader they got. And the guy answered the phone and says, well, that's me. I said, you're the person I want to talk to. That's just the attitude I'm looking for. I said, how do you like a Christmas present? He says, okay. I said, so I start lighting him up, right? We start doing trades, big blocks, this and that. This. Don't know who he is. He doesn't know who I am, right? So, after the first week, he's dying. Can I take you out for drinks? I was like, nah, I'm busy. I don't know who this guy is. All right, no problem. This goes on for months. We're doing decent to excellent, huge business, right? And he's like, oh, can I take you out to dinner? No. Oh, can I take you here? No. Finally, after maybe 4, 5, 6 months of this, he says, my firm has a big, actually, this is another tailgate. He goes, we have can I take you to the Giants game on Sunday? We have a huge tailgate party. We've got smoking hot girls, bartenders. We've got a DJ. We've got the whole thing set up. I'm like, I can't go to the game, but I'd love to go to that tailgate party. That sounds fun. Now, this is back in the days where Friday comes around, I'm out Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. Sunday comes around, I wake up, I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I can do this. I really don't know if I can do this. But I'm like, you know what? This guy wants to meet me. He's been wanting to meet me for a long time. I was like, this guy wanted to meet me. He wanted to meet me. I said, all right. So I got up and he's picking me up in an SUV at the bar near my house. So I go down to the bar. We're doing shots of tequila and car bombs at noon. Right? And I happen to be I was wearing a trench coat. Okay. And after like 2 or 3 shots before we head over there, he's like, so what's under the trench coat? What's going on here? I unzipped it. I was wearing a full skin tight white Elvis jumpsuit. I had the glasses to go with it, right? I was like, this guy want to meet me? I'll show you who I am. So I showed up in a skin-tight Elvis jumpsuit, right? We go to this tailgate, and his boss is there. There's like his whole firm is there, right? This is the first meeting of, this is the first business meeting, introduction. The whole firm, then and now, still to this day, knows me as Elvis. I mean, I had I was picking up the bartender. They had a great time. Fantastic.
Now,
I always felt
guess,
like, have you ever been to a party and, you're sitting there and either you're in Vegas or you're at a club or you're at a house party or something, and for a fact that if a couple are there, the level of that party has just gone up. Okay. and to a slightly lesser effect, if you get a couple Elvises, if you get an Elvis in there, high tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay, so Dundee, let's get back to you. I have to talk to you about your friend Goose. I must admit, you tell these heart-touching stories about Goose, and he's unfortunately no longer with us. And I was wondering if you could let us get to know Goose a little bit.
So if only Tarzan got to spend more time with Goose, and the podcast would be, orders of magnitude better than it is, because I believe they only met once or twice. It was at Goose's birthday party. Is that right, Tarzan? I think so, right? You'd only met him once or twice.
Yeah, we met once just by coincidence, and I'll tell you what, that guy, I hold him in very high regard because I got there early, and he came over to me and he's like, "Hey, would you like to try? We have an ice luge in the back. You want to try it out?" Sure. A very nice guy. I hung out with him, and then he died 2 weeks later or something, unfortunately.
Yeah. So he was, quite the character, and he worked at a few different Wall Street firms, and I met him in very similar circumstances. I met him at a wedding in San Francisco, and I didn't know anybody at the wedding. It's one of those really uncomfortable situations, and went to the bar, and he happened to be there, and we were best friends 5 minutes later. We went to bachelor parties in Rio. I knew him, I guess 6 years before he passed. So it's traumatic. Everybody dies. Life has a mortality rate of 100%, right? But when your first friend dies and is in his 30s, it's you remember him, and you remember somebody like that. It took me a long time to write about him. I think his first episode is somewhere around 35 or 40. So I think it's fair to say I didn't want to write about him. I didn't plan to write about him because I needed to get the tone right, and it was difficult to get the tone right. And we have somebody else who does our audio. It's a guy named One Mic Voiceover, and so then you've got an additional problem of him getting the tone right and understanding how meaningful it was to our entire group. So I still choke up thinking about him. He was a really close friend of ours, and you have these meaningful moments with people when you're in your late 20s and early 30s, and it feels like there's nobody else in the world besides you and that person. So it's a tough. I'm choking up a little bit now when I bring it up. So I think I have one more Goose episode left in me. A collection of stories that people have volunteered, when they've come across the podcast and recognized him, and then emailed me and forwarded stories on. So one more left in me, and I just hope I can do him justice.
Right. And so actually, I when we spoke earlier, Dundee, you told me this line about men and women, and I realize now as I'm looking over your post that is that actually Goose's line, or was that just you brought that up in terms of Goose's with his preemptive vasectomy?
I don't think it was. The preemptive vasectomy is an interesting one, right? Because all vasectomies are preemptive, right? But no, I don't think it was specifically his line. I think it was my brother's, and to give my brother credit, he actually came up with the name "Occupy a Job on Wall Street," which is obviously a play on Occupy Wall Street.
Right.
Which I think is quite clever in itself as well. I don't know that was specifically his line, but he's a lot like Tarzan. There's a lot of things being thrown around, and gems would come out. I only wish I recorded them all.
So why don't you give people the line? I'm not going to say it. I won't steal your thunder because I think it's a pretty terrific line about men and women.
So my brother was, said it, and I'm sure he read it somewhere else that women marry men hoping to change them, and men marry women hoping they won't change, and they're both wrong.
I thought that was
true.
I thought that was just the most best line. Okay, so a lot of your stories are about going to bars and restaurants. I have some questions for you in terms of New York City. You both tell me, you know what? We'll start with Tarzan. Best New York City bar throughout the years. Like if you could pick any bar, any era in New York City, like any time, what's the best bar?
Best bar or restaurant?
We'll do restaurant next. We'll do bars first.
All right. I mean, as far as food goes, I don't really care. It's not my.
Both of you are going to be like that.
But as far as places to hang out, Catch upstairs, number one of all time.
Yeah.
Oh, where was that? I don't even know it, so I've never heard of it. Where is it?
Meatpacking.
Oh, it's a meatpacking. So tell me about the meatpacking district, because half the stories seem to be in the meatpacking district. Was it just a function of during that time in New York City, that's where you went?
Yeah, I think that's probably true. No,
So-
hotspots in New York kind of tend to move around over the course of I don't know how long, 5 or 10 years, just because of economic and demographic features. You know what I mean?
So this was like during the Sex and the City when Samantha lived in the meatpacking district.
Yes, that was the start of it, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think what was interesting about the meatpacking district is that when we first started going out there, it was a dangerous place. I mean, like I said, there would be guys in hazmat suits literally, washing blood from the meatpacking,
Oh my gosh.
into the. Yeah, I mean, you remember that, and like gangbangers cruising around, and the tranny hookers everywhere, and I mean, it was an edgy sort of place to go. Now it's sterile and lifeless, I think. But again, that may be my age talking as opposed to.
That's just south of Chelsea Market, right? That's isn't that where it is right now?
Yeah, south of Chelsea. Yes,
that's right. Yeah, 12th Street, 12th Street on the west side. Yeah.
What I understand the process is that after an area becomes very hot, prices go through the roof, and then the younger, cooler, hipper artists can't really afford to live there anymore. So it's always kind of the fun place to hang out is always kind of the up and coming kind of neighborhood. So it moves around. In the 80s, it was the Upper East Side. Whereas when the time frame that Dundee and I are talking about, Upper East Side is dead.
Right.
So kind of moneyed an old school.
So, when we're talking about New York City, like a lot of your stories, center around New York City, do you think it's changed for the better or for the worse?
I mean, it's unambiguously changed for the better. I mean, crime is down. The economy is better. It's cleaner. It's more varied in almost every single way. And to take a positive view on it, that, New York City is going to be better, for the pandemic. And the reason it's going to be better is that older people are not going to want to live in a high density city anymore, and they're going to move out. I know people who are in their 40s and COVID's harmless, pretty much harmless to you if you're in your 40s, who will never come back here. And what that will mean is that the cost of living is going to decrease, and the population is going to get younger, and the city will be more reinvigorated.
Dundee, I actually disagree with you. I disagree with you 100%.
I'm sure you do. I don't doubt it.
The city is good if you are single and making a lot of money. If you're married or have kids, you got to get out of there, right? And I think that over time, I think it's become. I think a lot of people have been priced out. I think the fun level has gone down. It's harder to get places now. It's harder to move around. That's my take on it. And it's too expensive for a lot of hot young girls to survive there.
Well, the thing is that the prices are going to come down, right? I mean, you could argue that apartments, the city was a bit overbuilt anyway, and I think that only young people are going to want to live in high density cities, and that'll reinvigorate the city. But I'm the eternal optimist, with America. So, from my lips to God's ears, let's hope.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about trading. Throughout the years, you've watched a lot of different traders put on positions, or traders or portfolio managers. Who do you think is the most underrated risk taker? Now, underrated.
I mean, it has to be. I mean, you wouldn't call. I mean, as somebody who was panned for the last 8 years, the Ackman trade this year is legendary, right? And it mimics the exact trade that he did back when he was short all the financial system, and then he got long, these mall REITs, with the money. I mean, the concept of other people's money. I mean, to put on that hedge, short, corporate debt into this, and then just use all the money that he got from that to buy blue chip companies. I mean, you only have to do that twice in your career, and he's done it. I think. Yeah.
I disagree with you again. I knew somebody was going to bring up that guy's name, and I hope I don't know if you guys all remember, but I don't remember what year it was exactly. But him and Icon were on a phone call on CNBC one time.
Yeah. The
new spin thing or whatever it was. Yeah.
Icon lit him up and took him to town. That guy is a joke. He talked about beating him up on the playground or something like that, and that's exactly what happened to him. I think that guy's a hack.
But you're making my point. You're making my point for me, Tarzan. The question was underrated. Icon is not underrated. Everybody knows the guy's a killer, right? But Ackman had been panned for 7 or 8 years, and he made this huge comeback. So that would be my.
So what?
Cool.
So that trade, what he bought CDX protection, right, on like a bunch of credit. Is that what he did in terms of?
Well, what he did was really clever. I mean, he bought protection on AAA rated corporate bonds, and it didn't cost him anything. It cost him nothing, right? Because people were selling this protection. Like it was, I don't know, buying the CDS in 2007, right?
Right.
And yet they had this like 5 sigma move or whatever it was, and then he took all the money and bought blue chip companies, and he did almost the exact same thing 10 years ago. But both Tarzan and I have been kind of living in a little bit of a cave in the last like 5 years, so I don't know if either of us can really answer that question well. But take a shot.
That's true. That's fair. I agree with you there. Living in the cave, I've been living in the jungle.
Okay, so let's talk about what your day used to look like then. You say you traded a lot, so the portfolio manager would go and say, I want you to get long this, and then it was your job to go out and execute that trade the best that you could.
Well, I think Kevin, you know who I used to work for, so I can't say too much without giving it away, right? But at any one time, and this was true of Tarzan's, at least one of Tarzan's firms they worked for. We had 10, 15, 20 portfolio managers. 4 traders on the desk, 5 traders on the desk, and that was just equities. So you had 30, 40, 50 person trading desks. Multiple portfolio managers, different styles. I mean, it was just the execution. You couldn't do anything out there. It was that 100% of the time just executing, and any spare time would be tracking down information. But there's just too many to even track. I think.
Right.
I mean,
and so when you're talking about like that, when did that start going away? Like, when did that job disappear?
I don't know. I mean, maybe around, that's a good question. Maybe around 2015, 16, I'd say, 17?
I would say earlier. What was the name of the firm that got raided by the SEC? Tommy DeVincent used to run their trading desk, and they closed up shop, and then embarrassingly the SEC dropped all their charges, and they But that was the last big trading desk where they had 10 traders, all working for portfolio managers. Let me log into my Bloomberg and pull the name out. But I think it was a while ago. I think those days, post financial crisis, there's an acceleration of technology, and the job as a trader just lost its value. The more you traded things in a 10-year bear market, the less money you made. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Now the firm I was looking about was Diamondback. The Diamondback, I think, was the last big, cowboys with portfolio managers and traders, and the traders there had ran their own capital on the desk as well.
Right.
So those were the I think, and I believe the SEC rated them in like 2012. 2013.
So here, I'm going to throw something out at you. I think that when I first started in the business, I actually was hired as a computerized trader. I was actually hired to do all the index.
It's your fault, Kevin. It's your fault.
It's all my fault. Yeah. So I was. I was hired actually, and my boss has this funny line where he tells me, there was guys better at trading, there was guys better at computers, but you were the right mix of both. And so I was hired to go do the index client. So it was Wells Fargo at the time, and so we were on a sell side, and we were covering Wells Fargo. And then I very quickly kind of moved into the proprietary side, and I was eventually the proprietary derivatives trader, but on the equity desk. But at the time, I remember I made this program that arbitraged between Canada and the U.S. interlisted stocks. So like Research in Motion or BlackBerry was listed on both. And we wrote this program that went between the two. And I remember one of my bosses saying, "What are you doing?" And I explained to him that we were making this program. And he says, "Why are you doing that? I got 13 guys doing that." And I said, "Well, exactly. We're going to do it on the computer." And for the longest time, I made kind of my living by getting more efficient using the computer. I feel that we've actually taken computers too far now, and that we've hit a point where smart traders are going to start to be able to take advantage of the computers. And I really, truly feel this. Like Goldman Sachs used to have, 200 equity traders? They got 2 now. And everyone thinks these computers are so smart. I call bullshit on that. They're just stupid VWAPs, and they don't understand that they're actually costing themselves more money. And that if you are a smart trader that's willing to actually take a view, you can take advantage of a lot of these things. And all that this computerized trading has done is disguise the true cost of your order.
Wow. That's an amazing that you said that. I've been waiting. You might call it the reverse singularity or something like that. But I've been waiting for the human component. Trading is kind of it's an art and a science. Yeah. And I worked at a quant fund for many years. And it's kind of scary. I mean, you see things like the flash crash, for example, or, one day a Chinese quant genius that, came into the trading room, trading desk one time, and after working there for 7 years, and he said, "Wait, which side is the bid and which one is the offer?" Oh my God! Like these are the guys running the show. This is what's going on here. I mean, it's unbelievable. So when you said like that, you were a mix of computers and trading. That goes a long way.
I really think it's coming. I think it's good. I think that the opportunities for people that understand.
I would love for that to happen. I would love because a lot of these quant traders, it's a crowded space. The efficiencies there are kind of getting eaten and chipped away at, and when something goes awry, it can be disastrous. I think it's a little known fact about the quant meltdown of 2007. Are you guys familiar with that?
Yeah, well, so a lot of people don't realize this, but there was some huge moves that were kind of internal because all the stocks they were short went up and all the stocks they were long went down. And although people looked at the market and said it didn't go anywhere, there's quant funds blowing up like huge amounts, like 20% in like a week, or right? Something like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that happened because they all kind of got loaded into the same forecast, the same names.
Yeah.
And so these stocks, once somebody was forced to close out all their positions, that kind of drove like a snowball effect onto everyone else.
Right. And so Tarzan, tell us about working on a quant fund. What was that like? You must have been a kind of a fish out of water there, because like you're sitting there and the computers are spitting out the orders, and I guess you're the one trading them still, right?
That's a very
well. You could also tell them about your recent interview when they plugged you into a computer as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Actually, I did do a little bit of testing where they do a bio. I'm not sure where this went. This was a couple of years ago, but they put a bunch of those optics onto your head, those medical things with the wires, and they kind of plug you in to a biological. Supposedly, it's DARPA. Have you guys heard of DARPA, the Defense Department?
Yeah.
The ones who come up with all these crazy defense inventions.
Yeah.
Supposedly, they are linking neurotransmitter type stuff to pilots, snipers, and these types of things, and to improve their efficiency and decision making capabilities. So I was actually part of a test for a very short time. There's a team out there, Dundee. I'm shocked that you remembered this. I don't know how it was going. I didn't last very long in there. My mind might have fried their circuits or something after when I was losing. If I had one losing trade, thing blew a short circuit. But so I would get hooked up to this these biometric monitors during trading. So hey, who knows if there's alpha anywhere? There's alpha. It should be explored.
Come on, they hooked you up while you were trading to try to figure out what your brain was doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the angle was to see how your brain, made decisions and what the impulses were, the electrical signals were for winners versus losers. I can't explain it. Damn it, Jim! I'm not a doctor. I don't know, but
Okay, so we're going to get to the end here, guys. But before we go, I want you to both tell me one story. But before we do that, I have one question for you. In one of the stories, there was somebody who drove a Maserati, and it had the license plate Lehman Puts. Is that true? Is there really someone in New York City driving around with a Lehman Puts license plate?
I hadn't heard this one. Dundee?
That's my understanding. It could be a little market color on it, but that's my understanding. That was what we used to call the Jewish JFK.
And that is so obnoxious because people, it might have been deserved, but the reality is that people lost their livelihoods, and he's driving around with Lehman Put license plate. Oh well. So be it. That's life in the big city, right?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. That is great. In your face.
Yeah, legendarily, the same guy hated his neighbor, and when the fire of his neighbor's house caught fire, and when the fire department came, they wanted to use his water supply and his pool to help put down the fire, and he refused to let them. And,
Come on. Really?
Burn, right? Just the chance of his own house burning just to see his neighbor in pain. So.
Oh my god!
Oh my gosh!
What an
classy.
asshole!
That's classy, yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so let's both end with a good story each. Tarzan, you want to go first?
I'll go
Oh,
first.
Dundee wants to go first. Okay, Dundee, go ahead, bud.
So I've been married forever, right? And I've managed to keep a call it a robust social life. And we're sitting around at a bar, and there's 10 of us around the bar, and Tarzan keeps looking at his phone, and he's not paying really attention to the conversation. And I have no idea how dating scene works or anything like that, right? And he looks down at his phone, 2 minutes, back to the conversation, looks down at his phone again, 2 minutes, and I finally say, "Look, Tarzan, what are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, well, we created a dating aggregator, so it takes Tinder and Match and JDate.com and all this stuff. And what I've done is I've created auto responses, and so what I do is I hit up one, and anybody within a couple of miles, just says, 'Hi, I like your profile.' And then, I leave it for 30 minutes, and then everyone who's responded, I just hit the number 2, and it said, 'Ha ha ha, that's really funny.' So it didn't matter what it was just, 'Ha ha ha, that's really funny,' right? And anybody who responded to 'Ha ha ha, it's really funny,' the third one would be, 'Oh wow, you're trouble, come meet me.' And I was like, good God, like, there's a quant crossed with, the dating scene, I guess, He must go through with that version of the story, but that's the essence of it.
Tarzan, is that true?
Dundee, your grasp of the situation there is completely wrong. I would never say any of that stuff. Let's just say the psychology. You have the whole thing right, but I would never say ha 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 or nice profile or anything lame like that. I come out of the gate swinging hard, and then I double down on the next one. It's very psychological, and it's not there to pick the girls up. It's there to weed them out. Okay. Weed out the ones that are not down to have fun and party, that are not interested. You got to get rid of them. Get rid of them quick.
Fair enough.
I don't understand why hedge fund traders have a bad reputation.
Well, all I'm saying is, 99%
of us give the other 1% a bad name, right?
Okay, that's the line of the night. That's awesome. Okay, Tarzan, what's your story that you're going to leave us with?
Oh, that's a good question. Dundee, I'd known Dundee for about 3 years, and we're hanging out at a bar, and somebody called me by my real name, and he said, wait a second. Tarzan's not your real name?
I know what your name was.
So, we're trying to be anonymous here. I got to say that Tarzan is not anonymous at all, because there's 1,000 people out there that know me by that. So,
do you know what's funny, Tarzan? I actually have so we go skiing. We go on this cat skiing trip. Cat skiing is kind of like heli skiing, but just you go up on the cat. And we have buddies, and every now and then someone new would come. And for a couple of years, one of my buddies brought one of his best friends, and his name was Shaggy. And Shaggy was
what you doing for a Scooby snack?
Exactly. And Shaggy was a great guy. He was terrific. And I asked my friend what he does, and he says he's an artist. And then I get there, and they're just completely high, and they're doing paint by number, color in one of those paint by numbers things. And they're just talking about the colors and whatever. And so we ski together for a week, and it's hard skiing, and it's crazy. And it's for a week we ski together, and all the time Shaggy's the same way. So kind of 5 years later, my buddy's getting married, and I'm put on the table with Shaggy, and I'm trying to introduce him to my wife, and I say to him, Shaggy, I'm really sorry, I actually don't know your name. So Shaggy proceeds to tell me his real name, but not only that, he then proceeds to talk in a completely different fashion. And I realized that for the 3 weeks I knew him, he was completely high the entire time.
Totally different person. Totally different
person. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, Shaggy isn't that's Shaggy. That was his persona when he was skiing, the high Shaggy. And this is I can't even remember,
Now he's like Archibald Reginald Winchester III.
Exactly. Yeah. So I figure that's kind of like you, Tarzan.
Tarzan, I've known you 15 years, and I actually don't know why they call you Tarzan. So why is it? Tell.
Well, any true nickname, in my opinion, you can't give it to yourself. It just has to happen, and then it sticks, right? Do you guys agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't give yourself your own nickname. It doesn't work.
It's like that Seinfeld episode.
The
Seinfeld episode when George tried to give him the nickname.
Oh yeah, he wanted to be the monkey, or they called him the monkey. He wanted to be T-Bone, right?
T-Bone, that's right.
T-Bone. They started calling him Coco the chimp.
Yeah, that's right.
Actually, there was a wealthy French. I guess he was a sales guy, and I don't know if I had met him or if he was the boss of someone that I had dealt with. He was like a top-level guy. This guy, he was French. I didn't know it until later, but he looked like George Clooney, and he had a great personality. Okay. Now, he was chasing me around for business, hit me up, and I ignored him for months because he was French. And I was like, who is this fucking French? I don't know, fucking French, trying to hit me up, get out of here. I don't want to hang out. Get out of here. Get out. But then, I guess, I don't know what happened, but he wore me down. And let me tell you guys something. My opinion was 100% wrong. This guy was great. We hit it off. And, he's like He's like, Tarzan. He named me Tarzan. So it's actually Tarzan. He's like, Tarzan, you are my best American friend. I said, Michael, you're my only French friend. But he'd bring me out. He'd bring me out to his house in the Hamptons. Like, Tarzan. I'd be drinking tequila at 7 a.m. after a long night out at the pool. And he'd come downstairs. He'd be like, holy shit, So I had kind of the longer hair, the swimmer's build, and kind of a wild nature. So the Tarzan thing, it just stuck, and that was caught on like wildfire.
Right, there we go. So give us one last story. What are you going to tell us?
Okay, here's one. So speaking about the Tarzan thing, so we're at the Hamptons house one weekend. Oh, he's like, Tarzan, this is the Tarzan room. You can come here anytime you want, Tarzan. So I'm out in the Hamptons one time, this guy's mansion, and we had a bunch of it's me, two small French guys, and like 5 or 6 Euro babes. Okay, smoke shows, and we're going to a house party at another mansion somewhere there. Some big time guy, and we're hanging up on the pool all day, and the girls had spent a couple hours getting ready. Everybody's ready, but the sprinklers on the front lawn, there was some trouble with them. They couldn't turn them off, so there was a mist about 4 feet high, and in order to get to the cars, there was no way but to go through this mist. So we're standing on the front stoop, and I turned to the Austrian model on my left, and I was like, "You want me to carry you?" To my surprise, she said, "Yeah." So I picked her up. And I carried her, I picked her up, carrying her through this thing. Now I'm getting soaking wet from like the waist down. I put her down in front of the car, and boy, my arms are tired. I mean, 105 pounds, 110 pounds of dead weight across, 100 feet or so. That's heavy, using just your arms, right? So I put her down, I put her in the car, and then I turn around. There's 5 more girls standing there. So I went back, picked up one, all the way back. I'm getting soaked each time. Carried her back, lifting them up, carrying them back. So we get to this mansion, and we go in there, and the wife of the owner of the mansion, she's there, and they do the whole. She's like, I don't know. I guess she knew all the smoke show Euro babes, and they're doing the kiss, hey, nice to see you, kissy face. Say, oh, by the way, this is Tarzan. He just carried 6 girls across the wife looks at me, she's like, hi, Tarzan.
Tarzan, you're a legend in the Hamptons. It's a pleasure. A long time ago. It's a pleasure having you guys. For those who want to go listen to your stories and read it, Dundee, where can they find more?
However you listen to podcasts, it's just, I occupy a job on Wall Street. So, the Spotify, iTunes, and then we email the text of the story out the week before we release them, and there's a bunch of notes on the context, and you can always find me in an email to get on that. But just Google us and you'll find the stories.
That's awesome.
Terrific. Well, it's a pleasure having you both. I really appreciate it. And for everyone, go listen to it. You're going to have a lot of fun in this lockdown quarantine area time. There's nothing like you got 73 episodes to catch up on.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for having us.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Okay, time for the rest of the show. Lena, hop on.
Hello.
All right. No beer sponsor. Look, we got to stop this. Like this lockdown has to stop so we can.
I'm not
actually
going to be able to drink anymore after this quarantine.
Your tolerance to alcohol is going to be zero.
Yeah.
And my inventory of bad beers that I didn't like, that I from the previous, it's like inventory is definitely down to 0. I am now drinking Wicked Awesome IPA, another strong one, because those are basically all the ones that I didn't drink a ton of, and 6.5 New England style IPA. How about you?
I might end up drinking some mouthwash. I don't know. I need some alcohol.
At least you have good breath afterwards. But I actually, this local craft brewery near here actually does delivery if you order more than $50 a beer. So I grabbed this Conductor's Craft Ale from the Junction Craft Brewery. It's like a 5% beer, but it's really actually good. It's one of their signature ones. You should check it out if you can order from them. It's
You're such a hipster, Patrick, ordering from the Junction.
Yeah.
You're such a hipster. Honestly, that's such a hipster move. For those who don't know, the Junction is like hipster central.
It's like Williamsburg, right? Kind of.
For sure.
It's awesome.
It's hipster.
It's awesome.
You're too old, Patrick. It's like a buddy told me when we wanted to go back to our university for Homecoming, he says, Kev, we can't go back anymore. We're just dirty old men now. I think I was 26 at the time too. Like I wasn't even that old. Okay, let's do the legal stuff. Nothing in this podcast should be viewed as investment advice. Listeners should consult an investment professional before making any decisions regarding topics mentioned in the show. Side effects of too much huddle may include West Texas sweats, which I love, Tudor titillations, and or USO runs.
I get that last one quite a bit.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
All right, let's get to talking some charts.
Okay, it's my favorite time. It's talking charts, and it's my pleasure to bring back a friend of the show and one of my good buddies, Chase Taylor from Pinecone Macro Research. Chase, it's great to be with you today.
Yeah, great to be back, guys. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, it's great, and we're going to actually get you doing the talking charts. So Patrick's going to sit back, and he's going to just run
I'm
the
going to let you
slides.
do all the work today there, Chase.
We get to find out what you're thinking. So you were nice enough to bring a great deck. So why don't we jump into it? What do you got for us?
Sure. So something I've been looking at lately and really just kind of got onto this week was what's going on in crypto, of course, but at the same time, kind of marrying that to what's kind of looks like to be unfolding in emerging markets, currencies, and I think a lot of people, are getting long crypto. It's gotten really popular this week, and for good reason. It is breaking out, and I think a lot of people are just thinking of that more from a negative interest rate standpoint, which obviously makes sense and is a reasonable reason to buy. But I think if you look at, and which we will, a lot of these emerging market Forex charts, a lot of those look like they could really break down, and I think that will kind of play into some capital flight problems. And if I lived in Turkey or South Africa, I would probably want to move some money to Bitcoin. So I think those two kind of go together and make a lot of sense.
So Chase, you're showing your millennialness there with the crypto. And I just want to say 1 second, Patrick, that I see another Gen Xer. I'm assuming he's a Gen Xer, but he might be a baby boomer. He joined the crypto crowd of the very famous Paul Tudor Jones jumped into the long side of the crypto. He said it reminded him of gold in the 70s. Now, he must be a baby boomer if he remembers gold in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I had just kind of told my clients about the day before, and then I saw where Paul Tudor Jones had said that, and it's like part of you is like really happy that he agrees with you, and then part of you is kind of freaked out that now everyone's just going to jump in, and then who knows what really happens after that. But yeah, I mean, look at the chart, the monthly chart; it's fantastic.
Well, one of the things that always worries me when a big shark like that tells you that they've just done something like got into Bitcoin is that they were the one driving it up. So part of the reason is like, could that be Tudor like buying it up? Like he's, now obviously it's more than just him. But anyways, well, I'll let you finish your your technical analysis here. So what's going on with it?
Yeah, well, just want to jump in here though, Chase. So your narrative really comes down to the fact that you think that a lot of these investors on emerging markets are, rather than going to U.S. dollars, going to allocate to Bitcoin. Is that where you're going with this?
So I do think anyone that can get their hands on dollars will also do that. I just think it's going to be difficult. Maybe more difficult than getting your hands on crypto if you're, in some of these countries. So, but I'm a dollar bull as well, and it kind of plays into this as for me, honestly, as well. If you look at all the EM currency charts, like against the dollar,
it's brutal.
Most of them are having problems. But on the capital flight thing, so I got really lucky with Bitcoin, back in its run up. I bought it at 300. Rode it most of the way up, sold a bunch at 4,000 though. But the reason I originally bought it was for capital flight out of China. And you could kind of see that data as it was coming out, that everyone there was buying it whenever we had I think it was 2016, the issues with the yuan. So that was really my reason for getting into it. Cause like that is a real macro variable. Cause let's be honest, I don't understand crypto very well. Even though I am a millennial, like to me, it's more of a trading sardine than anything, but it does have the fixed supply, and I get that. But so for me, I like to be in crypto whenever I think there's going to be capital flight, and we're just kind of back to that place where I think it's going to come in. And having the tailwind for negative rates in the entire developed world possibly soon is another reason that, it seems like a good place to hide out.
Right. And so on this next chart, you're also showing Ethereum, right? And so you're
Right.
bullish crypto right across the board here, or
So, I am, but for me, the only two I bought have been Bitcoin and Ethereum. Just kind of, there's sort of the two main goes, and then they're, both have great charts. And I don't have the chart here, but Ethereum's actually been outperforming Bitcoin for a while, and is also about to break out here on this daily chart.
Right. And so we're looking here at the South African rand. What's on your mind here? Like, you're just trying to just show how the U.S. dollar has been ripping these emerging markets apart, at least their currency.
Exactly. I think so. I'm most bearish against rand, Brazilian real, and the Turkish lira. Although Turkish lira is getting much harder to trade now that Turkey's going after all the banks that do trade their currency. But those are the three that I'm like most focused on, although also Mexican peso. But yeah, you can see on the chart kind of putting in somewhat of an ascending triangle that I'm assuming will continue to move higher. COVID's really bad in a lot of these countries, which is obviously creating problems, but global trade is just hit so badly, and that's so much harder for these emerging countries than it is for a lot of the developed countries that don't depend on trade for growth the same way.
Right.
But yeah, after rand, I have the lira, and you can see this thing's just literally going parabolic, and I don't really see how it's going to change soon. It's pretty clear that Turkey is out of dollars. They've had to essentially borrow a bunch of dollars from their own banks, more than they're ever really going to be able to pay their banks back. So unless they give up some sort of strategic imperative of their own in exchange for some swap lines from the U.S. or something, I just don't see how they're going to get their hands on dollars, and I imagine this is going to get a lot worse. They're starting to really panic.
Right. And then you also have the Brazilian currency here as well, right?
Yeah. And this is a monthly chart. It really kind of zoomed out to show the scale of how bad this devaluation has been. And COVID is just going crazy there. They're all of a sudden people are talking about impeaching the president, and his approval rating has gotten really, really bad. He was one of those, this is just the flu guys, really recently. So that's kind of gotten out of control in Brazil, and
what's interesting,
oil getting killed hasn't helped.
Yeah, what's interesting is that one of the most bullish charts out there is if you look at the U.S. dollar rallying against the Argentinian peso. Like, look at this.
A little bit every day.
This thing's just been ripping higher since 2018. The U.S. dollar's up like almost 300% against it. It's like outperforming Bitcoin by a long shot.
So Chase, it's Kevin here. You paint a pretty dire picture for these emerging market countries. Do you think that this is going to transform into an actual crisis throughout the developed world, like we had in 1997 and 8?
I mean, it'll definitely have some spillover effects. I don't see how it won't. It's gonna put a lot of stress on the U.S. to find a way to help via the dollars. That's going to be, politically, that is just super interesting. Like how the U.S., how the Treasury, the Fed will have to find a way to help out by trying to get the dollar down. I just think it's going to be incredibly difficult to actually pull off personally. But I think, if all these charts break out to just another realm, which I think is possible, and I think the Turkish lira is what's going to really lead this.
Right.
I think it could go the way of Argentina here soon, and then I think it'll just naturally get spillover effects into the rest of emerging markets, especially the ones that have a lot of just natural stresses on their economy, which is South Africa. I think is one that will follow the lira much weaker, and then you just kind of have that just widespread EM panic, which starts hitting on global growth in a big way. And you start to, you get a nasty wave of global deflation, not what we need right now, as we already have one. So I do think that will have implications in the developed world. Yes.
Yeah. So Chase, what's your take though on the developed market currencies like everything from the euro, pound, the Canadian, Australian dollars? Like, do you it's clear what the story you're sharing with emerging markets makes complete sense. But do you have some bias as well on those developed nation currencies?
So I do, but I just don't find them as compelling to trade right now. I mean, I would consider myself bearish on all of those as well versus the dollar, but you just look at all the charts from a technical standpoint, they're messy, they're not as clear.
Yeah.
But like you look at a dollar and Canadian dollar, like that cross is just a mess. Like I can't figure it out right now. It's just kind of going sideways.
This is you want to look at the US.
It's just kind of building a rectangle, as you can see.
Yeah.
So until that rectangle resolves, I don't know what I want to do with it.
Yeah, it's like a wedging formation, but I mean, this is going to be very sensitive to commodities as well. I mean, there's some other variables that drive something like Canadian dollar, but it's really interesting. I mean, what's your intuition as where the Dixie goes? I mean, are we going to beat that 103 high on the next push? Are you that structurally bullish the dollar?
I am. Yeah, I do think we'll take out that high this year. I mean,
you know what?
That's
the best thing I've heard all day, Chase, because you know what? Me and Kev have this bet going with Cuppy on the euro, and the only way the Dixie's going north of there is if the euro nosedives. And all I'm thinking of this nice steak dinner I'm going to get down in Miami from you, Kev.
Well, we're not going to be allowed to go to Miami anytime soon. It'll be a long time before we're allowed to go there.
You guys can go help Cuppy take out some of that tuna.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
right. That's right. So Chase, when do you see this playing out? Like, do you think this is a story for the summer? Like, what's your time frame for your worries?
So I think a lot of it's going to have to do with oil. If oil keeps rallying and kind of really gathers itself and starts to move higher, I think that it makes this worse for a lot of these, especially South Africa, Turkey, places like Pakistan that are pretty big importers of oil, where they're going to have that sensitivity. I think it'll just kind of squeeze this problem that much worse. So, I think we are at a bottom for oil. So I think it's a good chance it is going to be over the summer. I think all these charts are going to have another leg lower for EM, FX, and I think again that will help push crypto to not necessarily new highs, because those are a long ways away, but I think to much higher levels compared to where we've been, in the last couple of years.
So Chase. Sorry.
So 1 second, Patrick. Can I ask one question? So you're structurally bullish on the dollar. Can gold go up in dollar terms during this sort of deflationary sell-off?
Great question.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been long gold and silver both for a while now. Just kind of trading around both at different levels, but I think both look really good on the chart. I'm getting a little nervous with gold just because everyone is long gold now. Everyone's bullish gold, so it feels like we could use a little bit of a washout. But if we get the kind of gold bull market that I think a lot of us expect, I mean, we're just going to have years at a time where everyone's bullish and it just keeps going up anyways. So I try not to put too much weight on the sentiment and positioning.
Yeah, because from a sentiment perspective, during major bull runs, everyone's bullish for a long period of time. They're just all wrong at the turn. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing for everyone to be bullish. You want that because I mean, after a 7-year or 5-year bear market that we had in gold, the sentiment was so destroyed on gold that it's going to take years to reestablish itself as something that you can own as a part of your portfolio. And I think it's just starting to happen now where people are saying, no, I got to own some gold. It makes sense. And I still think it's a little bit early in there. What's your take on all of this, though, in terms of obviously we're in a recession, right? As an induced recession to shutting everything down. But what's your take? Like, there's a lot of people debating, obviously, about, if they reopen the economy, how fast do things recover? How long is the stock market going to potentially break to fresh new highs when this happens? Like, how do you read this entire situation in your mind?
So, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely bearish the real economy. I think that's going to be kind of slower to recover and a little more painful than than most people expect. I just think the sort of self-reinforcing feedback loops that are just built in there that we all we can't see. There's non-linear. I think those are going to be a lot worse, a lot more impactful than we all think. There's many people losing their income, having to tap into savings or loans or their 401k, whatever it is, to make this just to get by for the next year or two. I think is going to have really significant impacts as far as the market goes. I've been bearish for literally all year, so I was really right for a little while and then really wrong for the last 5-6 weeks. So I've been in the bear market rally camp, but I was in that camp in 2018 and obviously wrong. So I really struggle with. I think we're all struggling with the giant disparity between the market and the economy right now. And
everyone but Kevin. Kevin does struggle with it.
Well, no, I struggle because I still get tempted. I still get tempted by the dark side like a fool.
One thing I will say is it's becoming really clear that I think for the next 10 years, we all think of tail hedging as left tail hedging, but to me, it's becoming more and more clear that having something in place to really hedge that right tail event is becoming really important. So whether you're bullish or bearish, I think having some sort of exposure to a pretty crazy right tail event is becoming more and more important.
Yeah, Chase, that is super well put, and that's a really great point because
what's really cool. Sorry.
What I was going to say is that as we get into situations where central banks become a more and more important part of the economy as they try to save it, it could see situations where things explode to the upside. And I think Cuppy always says that the Venezuelan stock market is the best performing stock market around. Right? It's just in real terms, it doesn't do that well. Right? Chase, can I ask you one question? We'll make this the last one. Europe, what do you think's happening there? How do you think it resolves itself? Is it going to implode?
So I think you and I have seen Europe, really similar for a long time. Every time I want to get bullish, they just kind of shoot themselves in the foot. You just kind of naturally feel like they have to eventually figure out that they have to come together in some way fiscally. Either come together or actually separate themselves out to where it makes more sense. Like either give the sovereigns full control over their fiscal so that, right now Italy could do more fiscally, or fully consolidate and start doing Euro bonds. And I think you have to get to one of those two or it really will implode, but I don't expect it to implode. I mean, I think the European Union and the EMU will find a way to get through this, but they're just not doing enough fiscal as it stands right now, and at the moment it doesn't look like it's imminent. So until they do more fiscal, like that's the reason I'm bearish the euro, is I just don't see them doing it. And I have something I've called the fiscal first mover advantage, and this is sort of how I trade FX. Is the reason one of the biggest reasons I'm very bullish dollar, and I'm bullish dollar against other developed markets is, the U.S. gets more bang for its buck on its incremental debt than the rest of the world. Something Lacey Hunt's talked about a lot. And, we're doing more fiscal than everyone, and we get more bang for our fiscal than the rest of the developed world. So whenever I add those two together, I realize, U.S. growth, even though it's going to be terrible, is going to probably outperform the rest of the developed world. And that's going to naturally drive some capital inflows, chasing some of that performance, chasing, the yield differentials. And I just, all of that equals to me, the dollar just kind of continue to grind higher against the developed world and not grind higher against the emerging world. I think it'll explode higher versus the emerging world here soon.
Yeah, well, that's well put. I like that. The fiscal first movers advantage. I really like that.
Yeah, it's funny because eventually that's what will end up really weakening a currency. But I think initially it'll be, very strong for the currency.
Yeah, well, which goes about, I've been talking about President Trump being the basically the most MMT president that's ever existed. And I think it's a big reason why the U.S. economy is doing so well. Like they're running deficits as a percent of GDP that are twice what Europe is. And then it's no surprise that, that the U.S. is outperforming.
Exactly. Well, there was a quick period of time where I started getting a little bullish on Europe because I thought, their system is better at protecting jobs than the U.S. U.S. is more than happy to just let everyone go unemployed, whereas in Europe they really protect the workforce, which 99% of the time is very bad for their economy, because then you end up with a lot of non-productive work. But kind of this crazy event where millions are all of a sudden unemployed. I saw that where that could be beneficial to Europe, but I just don't see that really playing out the way I was originally thinking.
Yeah, I was the same way. They basically have a much better system, and they come out of it better because they don't lay off as many people. There's not as much destruction. But you're right. If there's no fiscal spending, then their economy is just going to suck wind forever. So it's, there's no sense in buying it because the workers aren't going to have anything to do. Anyways, Chase, it's been a pleasure having you. Why don't you tell people about your great letter, where they can find it, and where they can find more about you and your product?
Sure. You guys can find me on Twitter at Pinecone Macro. The website is pineconemacro.com, and I offer 2 different letters, a weekly and a monthly. So there's kind of something for everyone there. Yeah,
it's terrific. Awesome. It's a great letter. I really recommend it. Chase, it was a pleasure having you again. Stay safe, and we look forward to having an update in the fall when Bitcoin is doubled.
Thanks, Chase.
Let's hope. Take it easy, guys.
See ya.
Cheers.
Okay, Patrick, it's my favorite time. I get to sit back and listen to you tell a tale about this week in trading history. What do you got for us this week?
Well, you know what? We're going to stay in that 1860-something range. We talked about the Civil War and all of that stuff the other week. So that we're going back to May 10th of 1866 and the failure of Overend and Gurney and the panic of 1866. So let's take a look back at this. So Overend, Gurney and Company was a London wholesale discount bank known as the Bankers Bank, which collapsed on May 10th of 1866, owing an amount equivalent to $1.23 billion US today. And so it was actually founded in 1800 by 2 bill discount clerks, this Tom Richardson and John Overend, who saw an opportunity in the very spasmodic bill discounting market, which at the time was done by mom and pop shops. So together they paired with the Gurney's Bank. So Gurney's Bank was based out of Norwich. Later it gets absorbed by Barclays back in 1896. But anyway, this Gurney's Bank basically supplied them the venture capital to start this operation. So as for their operation, so Overend Gurney enabled lenders seeking cash advances to sell their loan arrangements to commercial banks who had excess capital. So essentially, Overend Gurney facilitated the sale of loans before the loan's due date at a discount to its contractual value in return for cash up front. And so for the next 40 years, Overend and Gurney went on to reign as the largest and greatest discounting house in the world, quoted as standing next to the Bank of England in the City of London and becoming the Bankers Bank after making short-term loans to other bankers during one of the big money market panics during the 1800s. So back then, we'll talk about them in future history sessions, but there was a number of these little bank runs and periods that happened then. And what ended up happening is Overend Gurney was bailing these other banks out. So, in fact, it was so good at bill discounting, it poached many of the previous clients of the Bank of England itself, becoming so big that its annual turnover was equal to half of the UK's national debt.
Really?
Yeah, like it was a big operation back then, right? And so after one of the original partners died, the firm brought in some new blood who expanded their operations into some risky long-term investments, along with some shoddy financial practice, like, say, not verifying that land used for loan collaterals even existed, right? Like, so
seems like a pretty basic kind of tenant that you should check if it exists.
Exactly. So you have a profitable bank letting some shoddy financial practices run amok. With their new management and suddenly check. Well, now you have everything set up for the day of reckoning, right? Like you just know where the story's going. and it's sort of like subprime ninja loans coming, right? And so now, because of all of this, those money market panics of the 1800s, the Bank of England suspended the gold reserve requirement ratio of banks that issued notes. So back then, individual banks could issue their own notes. And before this entire panic, you actually had to have a certain amount of gold reserves to collateralize or to create them. And so that was all removed by the Bank of England during the panics to just provide the liquidity that the market needed back then. And so it was, only in 1857, during the first worldwide financial crisis, that the Bank of England started to wake up to the possibility of moral hazard. We don't have any of that today, do we, Kev?
None whatsoever.
And so the banks like over in Gurney were growing overly reliant on cheap money discount window. So in 1858, the Bank of England restricted bill brokers' access to its discount window, requiring banks to actually hold more reserves of their own. God forbid, right?
That's crazy stuff. Crazy stuff they're asking.
So this move was seen as being directly pointed at over in Gurney, who complained that their profits were being hurt by the new reserve requirements. So that's when over in Gurney got a little too big for their britches, and they tried to pull a spicy move. They essentially tried to do a run on the Bank of England. Mucho caliente, right? So basically it was the failed attempt on a run on the Bank of England. And so on the 29th of March of 1860, so this is still 6 years before it ultimately failed, the Bank of England unexpectedly raises its bill discount rate, which was seen as an attack on this bill market. And so infuriated by the actions of the bank and drawing on their connections, the new generation of Over partners joined forces with other discount houses and withdrew huge sums of money from the Bank of England over the next few days in an attempt to show that the Bank of England was actually dependent on these bill brokers and hopefully allow brokers to access that rediscounting facility again. So that's spicy, right? So, well, wait till you hear what they did next. Some real mad flex. So during that run on the bank, the governor of the Bank of England found an anonymous threatening note on his desk that morning stating that Overends can pull out every note you have with their own family assistance. They can nurse 7 million, referring to that the bank's reserve note cap was about 7.7 million pounds at the time. So defiant and surely peeved, the Bank of England stood firm on their reserve requirements. And over in Gurney, put their tails between their legs, and they redeposited all the notes to the Bank of England and apologized. Oh. So they won. But this only added to the pressure on over in Gurney, who had been on the brink of failure for some time from some of their shoddy investments and loan practice. And so as losses begin to accumulate and realizing that they were close to failure, what do you do when you're running out of money, Kev? You go raise some more.
Of course.
So they attempted to salvage. Yeah,
like
exactly. Right. Just do another offering. Why not? So they attempted to salvage the company by converting into a limited liability company and then raised £5 million, which was a lot back then, based on the sale of new shares, even stating in the investor prospectus that any losses were guaranteed by the partners. So think about this. So over in Gurney are pretty much vulnerable position right now. And let's hope that there isn't some sudden ironic event that suddenly unmasks this misconduct. That definitely wouldn't be good for them, right? And so,
no.
So Kev, knock, knock.
Who's there?
I'll give you a hint. It's the day of reckoning for over in Gurney. It was a very public bankruptcy of a popular railway firm from which the name had a similar name, Watson, Overend and Company, and the firm. So the firm began to see both public withdrawals, and then the sale of shares by its old management. So
Oh,
further,
I hate it when your old management starts wailing on your stock.
no shit, right? And this intensified the selling. So while Over in Gurney was almost insolvent, and at the moment of transition, a fact unknown to new investors. So the new investors just gave him some money, not knowing that this was all coming apart. The political and economic instability of the time helped push it into failure. Throw in the fact that the Bank of England again increased its rates. Overend was now left short of cash. But it was on May 9th, 1866, the day before its failure, when a court ruled that Over in Gurney did not have the power to actually collect on one of these debts from one of their rail investments. And that just triggered, when that ruling came in, that the public just made a run on their deposits. And so Over in Gurney went cap in hand to the Bank of England for a bailout. However, they were denied after the governor investigated their books and claimed they were rotten.
Oh,
These books are rotten. And
that's so British, isn't it?
yes.
It's rotten. Rotten
And,
to the core.
And so maybe the Bank of England was still a little salty over the fact that Over in Gurney was poaching half of their clients during that crash of 1825, or maybe it was the horse head in the bed bank run attempt that they did like 6 years earlier. But one way or another, the Bank of England was just going to let them fail, right? So with no one to help them out, the bank suspended payments on the 10th of May of 1866, and a run on the bank ensued across the major cities, with large crowds surrounding their head offices. Their fate was inevitable, and they went into liquidation a month later. The directors stood trial at the Old Bailey for fraud based on false statements in the prospectus, but they were acquitted from any criminal behavior. But subsequently, this is the key, it created a huge financial crisis, and more than 200 companies failed back then, including a number of banks, from all the knock-on effects from all of this. And it was actually a pretty big crisis that very few people talk about, but it was the crisis of 1866, the panic.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us. It's something even I've forgotten about, Patrick, because I was just a wee youngin' at that time.
You were just a kid back then.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah, let's go on. All right,
Okay.
Kev, it's time for the WTF clip of the week, but you can't take claim for this, can you?
No, I can't. We have a new member of our crew. Taylor was kind enough to make us a WTF, and let's just say he hit it out of the park. Lena told me that it was one of the best that she's ever seen, if not the best.
Oh, don't work it up. Let's see what it is.
Okay, let's play the tape.
They call him.
Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
He's a man who makes deals.
He is a master deal maker. He's a negotiator.
We have a country that's essentially a debtor nation right now. So we're going to make our country wealthy again, significantly reduce the federal deficit.
A man with no equal.
Buy stocks. It's time to go long. Buy the S&P 500. Cover your shorts. The bull is back.
Until now.
It comes from China. 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 China now. China. China. It will go away. You know it is going away. And it will go away.
The Dow sinking over 1,400 points, officially entering bear market territory.
My administration is rapidly implementing the largest emergency economic relief package in American history. We're going to take care of our large businesses. Thermo Fisher, Google, Walgreens, thank you. Yep. Target, LabCorp, Apple, Abbott Labs, Humana, and Cigna. Honeywell, great company.
Other people's money.
Let's see if it works. It might and it might not. I happen to feel good about it, but who knows? I've been right a lot.
You're right.
Good.
It was one of our best. He puts you to
well
shame.
done.
It's good. It's time for
It
you
does.
to retire.
It is. You know what? He's got a job. Taylor, welcome to the team. I'm proud to have you, and thanks for taking over that job, because it's yours. You did a terrific job. And I know it's a little political, like some people do it, but let's just be honest. It's more poking at the fact that it's really not going to the people, and this is something that it's hard to dispute the fact that the bailouts as they are going more to the upper crust, and this is a huge problem with the inequality, and it's only getting worse. And I think that was really the message of it more than anything else.
I took a different message because he was going to pay off deficits, but what's a long-standing tradition, particularly of the last wave of two-term presidents, is that by the end of your 2 terms you have to have doubled the national debt, right? So Clinton did it, then Bush did it, and then you would think, how can Obama possibly double the national debt? And they all know he was able to take it from 10 to 20. And so why would Trump want to break a long-standing tradition, right? I mean, he's got a gun for $40 trillion.
So you assumed he's going to, implicit in there is the fact that you thought he's going to get two terms.
I'm just saying, if he's got to target the $40 trillion. He's got to do the double. I mean, that's the rules of compounding, right? Like if you're going to compound over that period, you have to. You
just got to go for it. Anyways, it's a terrific WTF. Thanks a lot, Taylor.
All right, so it's time to move on to the top 3 things to watch next week, Kev. And so let's review, and I think we got the right ones this time for reviewing last week's.
We're not going to embarrass ourselves.
All right. So we got number 3. We were talking about the Chinese renminbi, the yuan, and basically we were looking for. Well, I mean, it started to break down, but it hasn't.
It's a snooze fest.
I keep waiting for this, and one day it'll happen. It's like you waiting for a bond crash. It's like one day it'll happen. You'll see, right? But it never happens, and it's the same thing. But when you look at that chart. It recovered off of that breakdown, and it's still down at the bottom of the range. It can still happen, but it didn't happen this week. That's for sure.
So, Patrick, you're once again showing the wrong chart. Can you please flip it to the way the real foreign exchange trader do it? Second of all, I'm actually surprised that it wasn't weaker, given the fact that there was a lot of stuff happening in China with all the kind of back and forth between Trump and...
Does this make you happy, by the way? Is that good? Now we're testing.
That chart's because the other thing is people don't know the way you look at it. Like, this is what everyone watches. I understand. Listen, I get it. If you were designing a system from scratch, you would do everything consistent. It makes no sense to have one that way and the other one the other way, right? No sense at all. But that's
I like to look at I like to look at the currency as it's crossed against the U.S. dollar. But that's just the way. It's just the way
I get it. But that's just, unfortunately, it's kind of dumb. It makes no sense. But that's the way it is. So let's just talk about China though briefly, because there was a lot of developments, and actually the fact that the currency hung in there was actually great. If you think about it, we had the Trump coming out on Sunday, which was after our show, saying basically that accusing the Chinese of, let's just face it, of hiding the fact that the virus was as bad as it is. And they were very inflammatory words that he, issued. Then that was followed by an article from the South China Morning Post that basically said that if you keep up this shit, we're going to go to, that's counterment of war. And at which point the Americans came back with something else. I can't remember. They did something with their missiles. Anyways, this stuff is getting worse, but the market doesn't care. It's actually kind of interesting. And whether, I guess, is this just both parties playing to their hometown is what the question you have to ask. Is this just Trump having to have a boogeyman? And don't kid yourself. The same shit's happening in China. They're blaming it on Trump the other way, right?
Right.
So is this just kind of like 1984 where you need a villain to blame and there's nothing really going to happen? Or is this the kind of the prelude of more kind of hostilities between the two countries? Right. I don't know. I'm still worried about it. But having said that, the market doesn't seem to be worried about it. So maybe I shouldn't. Who knows?
Well, you know what? I know what you're talking about. I'm not going to say anything else. So let's go. Number 2 was jobs numbers, and they came out shit. But the market seems to have rallied on it. But I mean, again, that comes down to the same kind of point, which is that once a market knows something is coming, it's being discounted and priced in. The only thing that ever catches a market is a surprise, which is something that they didn't expect. And who didn't know that this number was going to be shit?
Right.
Everyone knew it was, right? And
Yeah.
so you're not going to get a reaction off of it. And but anyway, the unemployment rate spiking to levels we haven't seen, like decade highs, or was it multiple decade highs? Like when was the last time we saw?
It's a lot. Like I think I don't know if have we been here before? Yeah, we've been here before, but it's
sure,
a lot.
How long?
It's never gone on a jump. The change has never been that great. Like let's face it, it's unbelievable.
But I mean, that's what happens when you shut off an economy completely, right?
Right. We've scarred this. We scarred our charts forever. This jump is going to be there, and it's going to mess it up for a long time to come. Yeah. I thought it was interesting, Patrick, that I saw the Bloomberg host, Jonathan Farrow, and he had a very somber message when he first started, because what he didn't want to see is everyone going, oh, we just had the greatest amount of jobs lost ever in the stock market rallies. And it is a kind of a balancing act that you have to realize that even though it's the largest amount and there's lots of people who are suffering, the stock market viewed it as not as bad as expected, and they rallied it. So it's kind of sad because there's lots of people who are really suffering, yet meanwhile the stock market's flying like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah. And so,
which brings us to our number one, right?
Right. And you were, before we started recording, talking, I can't believe the market keeps going up, right? Like you were talking about
I had joined the dark side with you. I had kind of thought that this China situation was serious enough that it was going to cause the stock market to take offense and to head lower, but I'm kind of shocked.
My problem with the market selling off straight down from here is that any Joe Schmo could draw a trend line connecting the bottoms and take the first sell candle below, and the market has a tendency to wash those traders out. And so
mopes like me, you mean? Like mopes like me that sold the whole?
Yeah, basically, it's down, so I have to sell. What happens is I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be shocked if we prairie dogged the high, and that was the moment to sell.
There we go.
You know what? That's what
so, Patrick, I have something that I've got in the works in terms of writing. I think I don't know if it's going to be a technically perfect prairie dog, because a perfect prairie dog is like one day and it jumps up and right back down. But I'm with you. I think next week could be strong. I got something on the hopper that I'm going to talk about in my post. But I think next week's going to be strong. But
and then
I'm going to look to sell it next week.
All right. So now the interesting thing is, because of option expiration, and we once again have the dealer gamma pin working there, and so we might see a scenario where the market pops and it's get pulled right back into that big. There's huge open interest between 28 and 2,900 on the options. We could end up on Friday somewhere in the middle of that range, and then the fireworks can begin in the latter part of May into June. Right? I think it's just if everyone thinks it's going to happen all right now, you're just going to burn theta like I am. but it's
so I gave up, Patrick, today. I must say.
Did you?
I gave up. I'm like
you're a quitter.
You're
a quitter.
I'm a quitter. I have very short fuse when it comes to the dark side. I don't like it. I experiment with it, and every now and then I try it, and I'm like, I don't like the dark side. And ultimately, why I don't like it, Patrick, is that the stack of blue tickets at the Federal Reserve, and one of my readers reminded me of it. It's so big, man. It's like fighting, like they're just going to devalue it, and they're going to keep pumping it in there. So you can fight it. I have better fights to go do.
All right. So let's get to the top 3 things to watch next week. And I thought it was fitting that you insisted we keep Bitcoin in here, and that you waited until Chase was off the air for you to shit on Bitcoin. Chase, we love you, but
Listen, Chase might be right. What do I know? It's gone straight up since where are we? Let's just pull this up. I don't know how to do it. I don't watch it and stuff like that. So it's bits in the sky scare me.
It's toying with 10,000.
Look at that thing. It's a bull market. It's hard to argue that. Like, you know what? All the power to everybody this long. Good for you guys. I'm a no coiner. I'm an idiot. I'm a Gen Xer. I like John Hughes movies. You guys like something else? I don't know. So be it. I can't bring myself to buying bits in the sky. Like, I just can't do it. I can't do it. There's nothing there. And they're going to tell me, oh, no, there's nothing there on dollars and stuff. Oh, I got it. I understand. But
yeah, there's a difference because when they make Bitcoin illegal and you can't convert your fiat currency into it, then...
yeah, what are you going to do? You're going to barter with your...
Well, yeah,
Anyways,
you can go to some third world country and use your Bitcoins there.
So I think Bitcoin is really great for getting your money out of China or hiring
emerging
a hitman.
markets. That's what that was his whole point. Is that
well?
a lot
Listen, Chase has got a good point. If the shit hits the fan in all these emerging markets, there could be some demand because people want to get their money out, and it is good at that. It is. Listen. It's terrific at that, so he might be bang on correct
because of all the capital controls and all this other shit. Like you just like circumvent all of it with hey.
So maybe they're right. So maybe I am completely wrong and it's going up. But the real reason is
you are. But
there's,
you know what? You're just being.
There's something going on. I don't know anything about it, but there's some sort of halving going on where the miners get half as much starting on Monday or something. So for those who know, there's something going on from the technical point of view.
Who gets to decide this shit? Honestly,
I don't know. I think
I thought it was supposed to be like. Is there some like Bitcoin god out there that like gets to say no?
I think there's some sort of they can pass things if it gets enough votes. I don't know. What do I know? I have no clue. It's crazy shit, and they're having it, and it's a big deal, and they're saying that's part of the reason we're rallying. It doesn't hurt that every emerging market currency is going no bid. And then finally, we have Paul Tudor Jones embracing the dark side. I think it's hilarious, though, that all the millennials are excited about some old guy like that buying it. You don't want those guys buying it. You want them hating it. You want those guys.
What if it becomes like Druckenmiller buying the NASDAQ top?
Yeah. You just don't want it. You don't want the old guys buying it. You want me sitting around yelling for kids to get off my lawn. The worst thing you could have is me telling you that you should be long Bitcoin. And that's, boys and girls, if I ever say that, you should be selling with both fists. So there's your sell signal. Number 2, what do we got, Patrick?
Number 2, I wanted to talk a little bit of the nat gas, and the big thing for me is that obviously we saw the bottom in at least a short-term bottom on energy broadly. So the oil bottomed, we see gasoline off of its lows, and what's interesting, I'm just going to show the continuous contract. I mean, we could go to any of the individual contracts like July or whatever, but this on the chart pattern from a technical perspective looks about as clean of a rounding bottoming formation. A bunch of traders will see inverted head and shoulders. Other people will see double bottoms. Whatever, pick your poison. But the bottom line is rounding, and one of the big technical patterns that everyone watches for is a pattern called the cup and handle. And the question is, will we see a handle? And let's not actually make an opinion, but it'll be really interesting to watch whether this dip is going to be bought. And that's one of the things that I'd love to watch next week to see whether or not this pullback proves to be a buy on dip or not. And I'm going to be impartial, but we'll see.
So I didn't want you to put number 2 there. I didn't want you to put nat gas.
Don't say anything. Don't say anything.
Okay, we're watching it with intense kind of.
Yeah, don't say anything.
Okay,
all right, so don't gooch or anything for yourself. All right, so number 1, the CPI inflation number. So inflation, the Kevin Muir boogeyman's coming. Project Zimbabwe, here we come, buddy.
I never say that. I never, just to be clear, I never say like we're gonna get Zimbabwe type inflation. I never argue that.
Yeah,
I just think we're
Cuppy. Yeah, Cuppy comes.
Yeah, Cuppy says it.
Does all the dirty work for you. He does all the dirty work for you.
I think we're gonna get like eventually. We'll not even eventually. Sooner than you think, we will have 5% ticks.
Oh my God!
I know.
You know what?
You love hearing that. It's gonna come, man. You're gonna be shocked,
dude. No. I always say the same thing. One day you'll be proven right, but you are once again way too early. You know what? No. It's you're just too early. You're just too early.
Okay.
Okay. You know what? I'll tell you right now that it'll be 2000. Let's make a bet.
Okay.
Let's make a bet. I say that the 5% inflation, which will come, will not come until 2023 or later. Do you want to make a bet?
So
that
I get
here,
if I get any ticket 5%, I win.
If we'll make it a burger bet, so I don't have to. Lose,
You're
too
on
much skin of thing
for sure. Yeah,
done. And Lena, you're gonna have to record that because we're losing track of all of our bets, and I'm cashing in on so many. I've forgotten so many bets that I've won.
Oh God, cashing in! You've won like the occasional one. Like it's like not only that, you haven't even won it. Let's see on the euro.
So
like
5%, friend. Let's just make this clear.
Okay.
Let's just make this clear. That
CPI, if we get a monthly,
if it's December 31st, if it's December 31st of 2022, and any time before then up to that moment, we get an inflation print that is 5% or higher.
Not for the whole year,
I'll give you
right?
5.
Like you don't.
No. A print of 5%.
Oh yeah, okay, done.
Burger bet.
You're on.
Because I know that if I go farther than that, you're going to win for sure. Because I do think it'll come. You're just way too early.
On.
Oh, I'm just explaining to you that you're 2 years too early to this.
Okay. Anyways, let's talk about this. We got inflation numbers coming this month.
Yeah.
Or this next week. Does the market care? I think actually the market does care. I think it is something that'll be interesting to watch. No, I do. And not only that, like if you look at it, they're not actually expecting.
What print do you think could possibly happen that would spook the market or even have the market react in any way? What print would we have to see?
I think that if we got a really bad deflation. I disagree with you. I actually think this is something the market's watching.
No, deflationary number. Okay, sure. I could
no, but inflation. They're going to be like so they're expecting, let's say, core PCI. They're expecting 1.8. If this comes in at like 2.2, the market will be spooked. And if it comes in at 1, yeah, Patrick, I disagree with you. The market cares. I think it'll care.
It's going to keep coming in negative. It's going to okay, whatever. All right, let's just see. We'll listen. I might have egg on my face next week, and then you can kind of laugh at me.
I'm not saying that it's going to be hotter than usual. I'm just saying the market will care. I think it is something to watch.
When you say market, you're not talking equities. You're talking bonds. So what are you talking?
Well,
I
think that if not only that, I think
inflation expectations.
I think it will affect the stock market too, even if it was. Because I think the bond market would back up a lot. But listen, it's probably not going to happen this month.
Thank you.
But you never know.
Thank you. All right, that's all. It's probably not going to happen this month. That's you. Just let's leave it at that and move on.
Okay.
All right. You wanted to put some parting words of wisdom.
Because I chose as our cover art Floyd from True Romance. I don't know, Patrick, you probably haven't seen True Romance.
Absolutely not.
Really?
No.
God. Anyways, Floyd was the Brad Pitt character from True Romance. He was a stoner, and he sat on the couch basically getting high the entire movie. Okay?
Right.
And so I kind of joked and said that we all are Floyd now, right?
Right.
He just sat around at home, and that's all he did. And then I thought, well, we should find some Brad Pitt quote, for the end. And I said, the parting words of wisdom are from Brad Pitt. He says, being married means I can break wind and eat ice cream in bed. Now, I'm pretty sure when you look like Brad Pitt, you can do whatever the hell you want, married or not married. That is the true parting wisdom. Oh, for sure.
Well, for the first 6 months, I think after a while,
I don't know. Although, you know what? Angelina got fed up with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
And there's only so much breaking wind Angelina can
exactly. Maybe that's what he did. Maybe he just took that to excess. Angelina's like, I can't take this shit anymore. Get out of here. You smell terrible, and there's pints of ice cream everywhere. Anyways, a big thank you to Dundee and Tarzan for a great show. Occupy a Job on Wall Street. Make sure you go check out their blog and their podcast is terrific. I love reading it. It's a pleasure having them on. A big thanks to our pal Chase Taylor from Pinecone Macro. Make sure you check him out. I actually love his stuff. I read it all the time in terms of getting my fix about what millennials are thinking about the Bitcoin and other things like that. And make sure you follow Lena at the Market Huddle. It's at the Market Huddle. And I'm going to try this, Lena. Make sure you like and ring the bell on YouTube. I think that's what I'm supposed to do. You're supposed to go onto YouTube, ring the bell, and do that kind of stuff. Patrick, where can they follow you?
You can follow me at Patrick Ceresna. You can also find my website, Big Picture Trading. But also, you forgot to mention that you can also listen to this as a podcast, right? So you can find it on iTunes.
That's right. So for those who
Play, you can find Podbean, Spotify, and of course YouTube if you want to actually see the very few charts that we end up showing. And
sometimes we have more charts than others.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot.
And by the way, if anyone wants Chase's chart book, you need to subscribe for our email. So you go to the Market Huddle website.
Lena sends it out every time, and if there's
Lena,
ever a chart
are we
book,
forgetting something? Like, are we doing this?
we might as well get.
Lena,
Lena, get on. You might as well finish this up.
What did we forget? Did I say that right?
Yeah, pretty much. Right. People might have to read between the lines a little bit, but
so they can go to markethuddle.com and sign up for the email, and then if we ever
Lena
have guests,
wants you to register for the email, so do it for me.
Yeah,
that's right.
Poor Lena.
Right.
She's like, what the hell? Is there anything else we forgot? Let's just finish this gong show while we can. Is there anything else, Lena? Are we all good?
No, thank everyone for listening, and then we can wrap up.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening. We can wrap up now. Take care. Have a great week. Stay safe. See you on the other side.
All right. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks, everyone. You're supposed to say your name, Kev. You're supposed to say that. We have it's in the script. You're supposed to say.
They know who I am. They know who I am.
Now we're going to have to edit that all out.
No, we don't edit shit.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of mess that I can't touch now. So
that's right.
It is what it is.
I did want to ask Lena something. There was like something. Oh, I know what it was. So while we were chatting about the from the guys Tarzan and Dundee, he was talking about Four Loko.
Yeah.
And Patrick and I were like, "What the hell? I have no idea what this is. No clue at all." Lena sends me a note. I didn't read it in time. And all this it says, Four Loko is absolutely nuts. It's like liquid cocaine. What the hell is this shit? Like, what is it?
It's like, it's almost like, I think they have different flavors. I don't even think that you can get them anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, it's outlawed.
I think they stopped making them because it was like tequila and a bunch of other booze plus some caffeine, and all these kids were dying and stuff, but it was like people were going nuts for it because like one of them would just fuck you up.
So for those who don't know, Taylor's just joined us. He didn't realize that we're still recording.
Welcome, Taylor, buddy. Awesome.
So Taylor's just gonna jump in now. Okay, that's fine. Taylor, welcome to the party.
Great.
So let's have a look here. The Four Loko, it doesn't exist. No, it exists.
It exists, but I don't think you can. At least not in Ontario, anyways. Like I had it. I don't know, like 10 years ago, probably. Like many years ago. It tastes kind of like Jolly Rancher.
Really?
So super easy to drink. It just tastes like a fruit punch sort of situation.
And then you die.
And then, it's a tall boy too, right? It's not like a little pop can. It's a tall boy. So you drink the whole thing and then you're like, oh, I'm feeling good. So you drink another one. And then by the end of it, you're like losing your mind. And a lot of people kind of wake up somewhere. They're like, I don't remember what happened last night. And,
So
I
did
never
it have
heard of
alcohol in it, though? No alcohol, though. It's just like caffeine.
No, it's caffeine and alcohol, right?
It's like having vodka and Red Bull sort of situation.
I've had plenty of those. Like, why haven't I died? Actually, I
but
nearly
it's like
did
that
die. One time
like
in Vegas.
Much more.
My God. No, actually, it wasn't Vegas. It was Chicago. I think I had like 16 of those in one night. The vodka. No, honestly, I thought I couldn't sleep. Like my heart was gonna burst out of my chest. Like I think I was gonna.
Yeah.
I was almost gonna go to the hospital after that.
Yeah, Four Loko basically actually gets you to the hospital. Like that's basically what it is, So it's like it's fun when you're drinking it because you're like, oh, like I'm feeling good. This is
and
getting me hyped up and like kind of like cocaine a little bit. But it's at the other end of it, you're regretting it.
I'm gonna just leave that. All that. That's just like a no-go. There's no winning on that conversation.
You and
guys-
Taylor
you
are
guys
both
couldn't
like,
handle
I'm gonna be really quiet about this, right?
Well, actually, I've never tried it, to be honest. Like, I'm like the only Bay Street guy that's never even tried it, and I have never even seen it. And I'm always kind of.
If you have it, you might have a heart attack.
Well, no, not even Four Loko, the drug itself. Like, I've never done it, tried it. Like,
Oh,
it's
no,
like
no,
I'm like
I haven't tried
I'm a tree. Exactly. It's like no, I've never tried it.
I've never tried it. I've been in presence of it, but I've actually never.
I've
tried
never even seen it. I don't even understand. Like, everyone says it's so big on Bay Street, and I've never even seen it. And then I realize I must just be a nerd, and all my friends keep it away from me.
You know, like how in movies they like all go to like a public bathroom or something at a bar. They go to the bathroom
Yeah.
and then they go like 3 people, shove into a little stall and they do a line and stuff like that. I thought that was only in movies. I went to a party once with like a coworker of mine. She had a lot of friends in media and things like entertainment and whatnot. So we end up going to some party at a bar, and then we're getting kind of drunk and we're feeling kind of good. And then she goes, "Oh, we're gonna go over there. We're gonna go over there. You gotta come." And I was like, "Okay." So I go over there to near the bathroom. I'm like, why are we hanging out near the bathroom? Like, I don't really understand. Then we go into the bathroom. At this point, I don't know if this is the men's bathroom, women's bathroom. I have no idea what's going on.
Powder your nose.
And I'm sorry?
Powder your nose.
Well, basically. But then I was like, why are we doing this in a dirty bathroom, like on top of a toilet seat? Like, I don't understand.
It's illegal.
And they're like, "Do you want a hit?" I'm like, "No, I'm okay. I don't think I want that up my nose."
Okay, Patrick. Oh no, it wasn't Patrick. It was Lena. I left with the duty. Let's talk.
Oh yeah, I didn't get to watch. it.
Lena.
I'm sorry. I'm catching up on Bosch still.
Oh, isn't it awesome? Best episode.
Yeah, I started season 4.
Yeah. Wait.
So-
Season 4. Wait. No. You're way behind. Like, didn't we just?
Yeah, I'm getting there. There's only so many hours of the day that I can. I got to do some work at some point, right?
No. Patrick will understand. You had to watch Bosch.
I don't understand.
Okay, so Lena, you did. You're a whole season. Season 4 is not very good on Bosch, by the way. It's season 5 you want. It's the latest one. So you didn't watch the movie, and you didn't watch the asshole documentary.
No, but I did watch a movie.
Okay, so what did you watch?
called-
Give us something good to watch, and then we'll call it a night.
I don't know. I have mixed feelings about the movie I watched. It's called Arkansas.
Okay.
It's with Vince Vaughn, John Malkovich is in it, one of the Hemsworth brothers, and then the kid from Hot Tub Time Machine. I think he actually wrote the movie.
Okay.
But I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of like how you become a drug dealer sort of situation, and it kind of spirals out from there.
Oh, I see.
You kind of have to watch it.
And is it good?
It's a bit of a slow burn, but I thought it was good. I didn't like the ending,
wait,
but
Lena,
I thought
it's got 45
the
tomatoes.
movie was good.
I can't do it. I can't do it. It's got.
You gotta listen
Oh my
to the
God.
tomatoes.
Listen. The tomatoes always are right. Show me an example. I challenge anyone to show me an example of the tomatoes getting it wrong.
All right, maybe I'll look into that.
I have never. I'm not watching this. It's 45 tomatoes. Not a chance.
I thought it was interesting.
Well, there you go. So you think the tomatoes are wrong? I don't know. I
No,
might
she
be
was one of the 45, right?
I might be self-selecting
Exactly.
because I don't listen to any of the good ones. But I've never seen a good tomato, like an 80-plus tomato, and gone, that's a shit movie.
Right.
Patrick, did you watch anything that we can tell us about?
Oh, absolutely nothing. No.
He still needs to go and watch True Romance.
Oh,
I know.
I'm
Holy
not.
fuck. Why? True Romance
I?
was... Yeah, it was written by...
Classic.
It's actually written by Vince Tarantino.
Tarantino.
Was he?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's like it's
All
one
right,
of the...
I'll
it's-
watch it.
You've never watched it?
No.
Let's get Taylor on
That's
for
my-
a little bit here. Like he's like, Taylor, have you seen True Romance?
Is that with Christian Slater?
Yep.
Yeah,
That's correct.
I saw it a long time ago in one of those like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came out in like 93.
Yeah, when you were like what, 7?
Yeah.
Like this is basically, Patrick. We have 2 millennials now on staff, and so we're quickly getting all of our Gen X jokes are not going to fly so well.
No, they won't. No.
Well, and you know what? They never flew well with you
My-
anyways because you didn't get half of them. just left
I
alone.
get shit on for my jokes, so anyway.
So true
I'm
romance is generally.
gonna have Taylor like write all my jokes for me now. It's, that way,
Yeah.
at least they're funny.
So Patrick, you got to go watch True Romance. It's from
Really?
it's from
No.
yeah. It's literally
Done.
it was Quentin Tarantino wrote it. It was Christian Slater and what was the other one? Patricia Arquette. And it has Brad Pitt, and it's probably one of the it's terrific. It's awesome.
There's a whole bunch of other people in it, like Val Kilmer and
Dennis Hopper.
Walken, I think.
I mean, just
Yeah, there's a whole lot of big names in it.
It's a great movie. Yeah, I forgot about Val Kilmer. Have you seen him lately? He's basically been taking
Unrecognizable.
unrecognizable. Like I don't want to make too much jokes because I'm pretty fat lately too. But he literally has gone a long way from Iceman. It's like Ice Cream Man is what he is now.
Oh my god.
Samuel Jackson's in here. I forgot about that. Oh, there's a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Patrick, there you go.
Star-studded
Your
cast.
job is to go watch True Romance. And Lena, what is the name of the movie? Do you remember? Blow the Man Down.
Oh right, Blow the Man Down.
Yeah. So you got to watch it and you got to come back to me and tell me what you think.
Alrighty. Let me see if I have time after editing this episode.
I know
if I
it's
can
going to be a
watch
tough
it.
one to edit. No doubt about that.
doozy.
It's a doozy. It's not quite Jimmy Jude style, but it's pretty close.
That's right. Which means I should get to it. Right?
Actually, I just tweeted out, by the way, that we got the Occupy a Job on Wall Street guys to come and chat, and Jimmy Jude sent me a note saying, that's awesome. They got some great stories. I was like, that's no surprise that Jimmy Jude likes the Occupy a Job on Wall Street guys.
Yeah.
Okay, boys and girls,
All right.
have a great
Tapping
weekend,
out.
everyone.
Yeah, have a great weekend.
Take care.
everyone.
Taylor, thanks for all your hard work. Lena,
Yeah,
you too.
that
Take care.
was awesome, bud.
Of course.
Yeah, take care, guys.
All right.
Okay.
Cheers.
Bye-bye, guys.